So, language learning is one of my favorite hobbies if you didn't know or couldn't tell taking a quick scroll through my channel. When you start to learn a language, especially your second language, you start to notice all these really fascinating patterns of expression. And by noticing them, that means that they're sticking. That means you're doing a good job, you're studying well, you're really starting to gain the knowledge of that language spoken. But that doesn't make it any less humbling when you inevitably make a mistake, say something that you're not supposed to say, or something that you think means one thing, really it means something very different. It's gonna happen. I'm sorry. It's just how it works. You can't say je suis excité in French, but similarly you'll say oh geil in German. I don't make the rules, folks. It's just how it is. There are a few things that took me some time to figure out. Hopefully I can speed that process up for you guys so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. Let's get into it. C'est parti! So our first point is pronunciation. There are 12 vowel sounds in the French language. 12. English has 20. This means that for English speakers, a lot of French sounds sound almost indistinguishable from each other.
Time. Temps. Attempted. Temps. Stretch. Temps. Horsefly. Temps. Ant. Temps. As much. Autant. Wait, your tempting ant is spending your time so much you have so many horseflies in your tent. Attends, ton a autant de temps dans ta tent.
This is like the boogeyman of the French language, the bane of every student's existence. And pronunciation is really difficult, especially in French, but it's not impossible. Let me give you a couple of examples. L'amour et la mort. I don't even know if I'm saying those correctly, to be honest with you, but they're very, very different things. J'attends l'amour means something very different than j'attends la mort. And to be honest with you, that's probably one of the more fairly distinguishable differences in French. So if you can't tell the difference between l'amour et la mort, you got some ways to go. You got your work cut out for you, and that's okay. This is a learning process. That's the point of learning a language. It's not going to be easy, and that's fine. That's the fun part. But you're going to look like a fool. The reason French pronunciation is so unimaginable to English speakers is because they don't put any sort of emphasis on it in schools, and I can go on about it forever. I can talk forever about what schools need to do better, but that's not why we're here today. We're just talking about French. And my hot take is that good pronunciation is worth more, especially in the beginning, than top-tier grammar or even complex grammar. Because the thing is, in the first year of speaking, you won't necessarily need to know how to converse with somebody in French about what superpower you'd hypothetically like to have if you could choose any. But you likely will have to know how to order food in a restaurant. And in order to do that, you're going to have to be understandable. I can't even do English these days, guys. You're going to have to make yourself understood, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And French is difficult. To make yourself understood is probably one of the hardest aspects of this language that I can explain to you right now. If you're interested to see how much it matters, just a basic conversation, basic interaction in a French restaurant, I recommend this video. Probably the most well-known part about French that is so much fun for learners is that you don't pronounce like easily half the word. It kind of feels like they just slapped a whole string of vowels on to the end of that one. I don't know what kind of sound will come up from my throat when I attempt this. I just know it's not going to be pretty. So the thing is, work on it. That's all I can say to you. Watch a lot of media. Watch as much YouTube as you can. Try to listen to French people pronounce French words. I'm sure your teacher's great, but I'm sure they're probably also American. Sorry. Welcome to French. For those of you who don't already know, how do you think this word is pronounced? Just take a wild guess. I bet you it's not pronounced that way you have in your head. I bet you it's you're gonna go crazy when I tell you that this is pronounced oiseau. Oiseau, that means birds. Hey, you chose this, not me. I'm not trying to make you feel overwhelmed. I'm just saying, you're gonna get to a point, you're gonna have absolutely no idea what's going on. And that's okay, because I never have any idea what's going on. Nobody does, especially not people who speak French. So we've come to my next point, and that is slang. Every language has slang. You will speak very differently to your buddies than you will to a professor, to a boss, maybe giving an academic presentation. That's just how language works. It's fine. French has the same thing, but it's harder because it's French. For those of you who have just started learning French, you might not yet be aware of this thing called Fernand, and to oversimplify it, is essentially a dialect that you will hear and see in film, media, and just in conversation, and you are very, very unlikely to hear a lick of it in your French class. Haha! This is not the perfect analogy, but it is essentially the Pig Latin of French, except that you will hear it. You will hear it walking down the street in France. I would be doubtful that you could get through any conversation with a French person without hearing some Fernand. And if you're not prepared to hear it, you will not understand it because it sounds nothing like the word that is in the French dictionary. Now, if you're curious to learn more, I've already done a video on it. I'll link it above. But even moving past slang, not even talking about Fernand, the way that French people speak is absolutely not what we're taught in schools. One thing that used to trip me up all the time is the fact that in conversation, the ne part of the adverbial negative is often dropped. So taking the full phrase, je ne dors pas, I don't sleep, or I'm not sleeping, you would probably hear something closer to je dors pas. And that's not a big leap, like, whatever. You still got the negative in there, it's fine. It's a little more cash. Similarly, you would hear something like je mange pas, j'étudie pas. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is when you're forming a different kind of negative. If you wanted to say, I don't sleep anymore, you would say, je ne dors plus. That's the full phrase. But a French person might say, je dors plus, in order to say, I don't sleep anymore. But really, if you translate word for word, je dors plus, that means I'm sleeping more. It's the dead opposite of what you were trying to say in the first place. And this happens constantly in conversation. They say the opposite of what they really mean. It's just up to you as one of the conversationalists to determine the context, to see whether they mean this thing or this very different thing over here. It's just like, literally, you are literally saying the opposite of what you mean. Another phrase you'll hear all the time is t'inquiète. And if I were to expand that and give you the full phrase, it's ne t'inquiète pas, which means don't worry yourself or just don't worry. But when you say t'inquiète, you drop all hint of negative. Should I be worried? I don't know. Alright, folks, we've arrived at our final destination. The final thing. Actually, that's not true. I can't say this is the final thing that drives me crazy about French. The final thing of this video that drives me crazy about French is the irregularities. And folks, I was not prepared for this when I started learning this language. I started learning this at 14 just to fulfill the credit of my high school diploma. I didn't know how much brain power I would actually need to figure out what it is a French person is trying to say to me. It's just one of those languages that for every rule, there's an exception. It's very easy to feel like you've been plunged into language chaos. All the adjectives follow the noun except for adjectives describing beauty, age, size, or goodness. I don't know what goodness means. Like, what does that mean? But I do know that la directrice ancienne means something very different than l'ancienne directrice. And folks, the passé composé. Most verbs are conjugated in French with the avoir auxiliary verb, the helping verb, except for 17 verbs. And lucky for you, there's a cute little song to help you remember these verbs. But if you task yourself with learning every cute little song, every mnemonic device, then suddenly your head would be filled with cute little songs and mnemonic devices and not actual applicable French.
I've been waiting for this one. Turn it up!
And the other part is that these 17 verbs, for the most part, can be conjugated with avoir like every other verb known to man, but they mean different things. It's different when you conjugate with être and avoir. It's just, why can't anything ever be easy? But again, that's not why we do this. That's not why I'm here talking to you about it. That's not why I haven't learned French. That's not why you're currently learning French. Folks, we really love a good struggle. And of course, none of this video was meant to deter you from learning this beautiful language, from learning any language, because let me tell you, all languages have these little quirks, like some give you the rules and then tell you that there are about a million ways that nobody follows the rules. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn French. There's so many beautiful things that come out of that culture, that literature, the art, oh my god, the media. The films are incredible. And to be able to understand those without translation, to hear the original text, the original dialogue, it is unmatched. I'm just saying, it's also a pain in the ass. But it's a good pain in the ass, and I love that pain in the ass. And it's a part of my life, and I want it to continue to be. And I hope that you make it too. Or if it's not French, then Italian or whatever language that you're interested in. I hope that you push through those difficulties and that you recognize them as milestones that you will pass. But also, happy little, FUs. Left by history. I don't know. That made more sense in my head. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Learn French. I love you. Bye.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.